like I'll just be fine. So whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it.
He really got to plug me because I'm trying to get to that. So what would they have for y'all on site once y'all do like once y'all get out there in Seattle?
We get to go in the locker room,
Fine.
so whatever.
Oh,
It's the one time you get to do that. So yeah, that's um
what is the name of this meeting? All right, we're live streaming now, Jonah. So just in case you want to get out your any F bombs or anything like that you want to get out.
okay, so no cursing is allowed.
I mean, it's just the personal brands. Like, I didn't want you to. I didn't want you to not know what you were
Getting
getting.
censored on this podcast. I
Chill
mean, come
out.
on.
No,
Come
hey,
on.
brother, as somebody that works in TV, no censorship going on right now. What do I want to entitle this? Tigers dancing. Because usually we just have regular episodes, but when we get big time guests as yourself, we try to
Ooh,
do
big
a little.
time guest.
We try to do like a song feature. So like I said, Tigers dancing featuring Jonah Dylan. I think we'll rock
I'm
out with
honored. I'm honored, man. I can't like I get to be on this podcast. Like
you.
I've
Call
been
we got
nervous.
your
I've
you
been
got your
nervous all
backup
day.
band
Like I
all
was sitting
cool.
there, I was telling Seth and Chandler, like, dude, I'm about to be on this. You guys don't understand. Like, I gotta get out of here. I got big things to do.
Sorry, twin. Bet.
Seth was like, man,
I
Josh Crawford, like I get it. Yeah. All right, let's do it.
my podcast co-host is like, yeah, okay. No cap family. What's going on, y'all? I was gonna say midweek. It's after Monday, so I think we could qualify as midweek. If you're listening to this podcast, you may or may not, you probably do know your Memphis Tigers have recently garnered a 5 seed in the upcoming NCAA tournament. Big surprise to a lot of folks. May not be a big surprise to the guy that I got rocking with us right now. But because I would say banner moment for the program, banner moment for the city. Honestly, how you know how it gets Jonah in terms of when Memphis wins on either one of your beats, Tigers or Grizzlies. It means a lot to the city. So because I think I know what I'm doing, and you're gracious enough to grace my platform, I have Memphis Commercial Appeal Tigers and Grizzlies beat reporter Jonah Dylan to talk all things Tigers and maybe just a smidge of Grizz. So Jonah, it's been a whirlwind week for you. How you doing, buddy?
That has. It's yeah, there's a lot going on. I can't believe it's only Tuesday. Thanks for reminding me though. I didn't know that. I got back from Fort Worth yesterday from the AAC tournament and going to Seattle tomorrow. So
I was about
yeah.
to say, like, you kind of just did it, but like, detail for my people, what's the past 72 to 96 hours has been for you tracking our Memphis Tigers?
Yeah, well, like, so obviously we were out in Fort Worth Friday, Saturday, Sunday because they got a win to go to the next game. Sunday is crazy because, as everyone obviously saw, like they win the game to win the AAC title, and it's like 4:40 or 4:45 or something. The selection show is at 5. So they go up there on the stage and they do the trophy presentation, and then they don't even have time to cut down the nets. They go upstairs to this room to like watch the selection show, see that they're a 5 seed. Everyone's excited. Then they still got to go back down to the court to cut down the nets because they'd still just won the AAC title. Then they got to go do the press conference and then they get out of there. So I don't even those couple hours. I don't even know what happened. I don't know how many stories I wrote. I don't know. I was talking to people. We were in a press conference. There was a lot going on. And then Monday I woke up and drove back. And then today we heard from Penny Hardaway and a couple players earlier today, and then I took football pro day, and now I'm here. So if I say anything that doesn't make any sense, it's because that's been my schedule over the past, like you said, 48 hours. So there you go.
No, I was about to say between the traveling, the amount of stories, I didn't even realize they actually the in between of like selection show actually going back out to cut the nets. It's like very emotional moment that's coming on deck. But let's find out about this other very emotional outcome that we got coming up. Yeah. So and obviously everything that happened, all of the events that happened, require your attention and detail. So it's people don't understand people understand just a glimpse of what goes into the stuff that they call news and sports. So I'm glad that you could come
Yeah.
on and give some context. Jonah, we'll do this chronologically because again, you've been busy, and again, you guys even today you had some very pertinent things to this pod. So tell me again today, PJ Haggerty named second team AP All American. You spoke to one Penny Hardaway. What did you learn today that you want to get out? That maybe different with the information that we've gotten or seen the past 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was interesting. We asked him obviously about Colorado State, right? And he actually said this, and Nicholas Jourdain said the same thing. He said they're the hottest team on the West Coast right now. And well, first of all, I don't know that Colorado's on the West Coast, but I guess we'll let it slide. Uh, if Penny says it's on the West Coast, it's on the West Coast. Uh, they won 10 games in a row. Like they're really good and they're playing their best basketball right now. So I think obviously everyone around the Memphis program knows that. The big thing that kind of coming out of today, obviously, besides news about Tyrese Hunter or just asking about that, was, Memphis is a 5 seed and everyone's excited about that. And then the betting line comes out and Memphis is an underdog against Colorado State as a 12 seed, which is like pretty surprising. And obviously the kind of thing that the Tigers can use as motivation. I saw even Colorado State's coach, Nico Medved, already said that like he thinks that that's going to be motivation for Memphis. He's not even like excited about it. And obviously it is. This is a team that like they love to be the hunter, the hunters instead of the hunted, basically. We saw that like in the non-conference, right? When Memphis kind of takes on the role of underdog, they really thrive in that, especially like in Maui. And so it was interesting to hear Penny talk about that and then hear from PJ Haggerty too, because he was kind of talking about that as well, especially, he was second team All-American. His first thing he said was that he got snubbed from the first team. So there's some motivation right there.
Nah, it's crazy. As good as PJ's been, it still was just a little wild to hear a guy that was at Tulsa last year be like, "Yeah, I could have been first team AP." But then that just kind of talks to, hey, he is, I'm living down here in Texas right now, so I think that speaks to that Texan embedded confidence. I'll put it like that. I'll avoid using the A word, but as good as he's been hooping, how much he's put the team on his back, especially in some big showcase events like you said, the non-conference schedule, Maui. The man thinks he's one of the 5 best college basketball players in the country. I'm not going to be one to disagree with. And before we get into further to anything serious, your Californianism is showing there, with your Colorado is not on the West Coast, Jonah. I think that a lot of people, at least in our area, will just in our Memphis-based demographic, they see anything west of Kansas, probably as a West Coast, but we know
West
you
of
a
Kansas.
true LA native. We know you get a little antsy about what gets described as the best coast. So we didn't want to offend
Okay.
or anything like that. But yes,
Okay. First of all, I actually didn't think about that until like right now because Penny said it earlier and I was like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I mean, look, they play in the Mountain West, right? So we associate that with like they're out there. I didn't even think about it at all. And then when I said it, like when I was here, I was like, wait a second. And the other schools that he mentioned were Arizona and Gonzaga. Now, Arizona also
okay.
not really. Gonzaga, obviously, okay,
I'm about to
Washington.
say you wouldn't consider
Or
Arizona West Coast, like, because
I
it's not
think
on
that's no.
it's not bordering the Pacific Ocean.
No, Arizona is not bordering the Pacific Ocean
No, I'm
for sure.
saying so any states that aren't directly bordering the Pacific
No,
Ocean
that's one thing. I
considered
think
West
that
Coast.
Arizona, okay, Arizona I'm okay with, but Colorado, I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Well, again, brother, you
I
are.
mean, I'm not questioning Penny Hardaway. I'm just saying we need to know what the West Coast is. We need like a full this place is in it, this place isn't. That's all I'm saying.
Well, brother, like I said, as a LA native, we're gonna defer to you on all things which fall up in the West Coast umbrella. Unless, oh, well, not why is ChatGPT saying nah? That's really informal. But yeah, West Coast typically refers to the state that directly border the Pacific Ocean. So we're gonna score one. We're gonna score there in the Jonah Dylan column for this. Hopefully, we won't get too
Wow.
many more
That's
than
what I
that.
came on here. That's what I came on here for. So I'm
We're
excited.
keeping score, Jonah. So I can imagine you're a competitive guy. So I can imagine you like to get that under your belt.
I just wish that people who's listening to this podcast could have seen our arguments that we had in the CA office
In the
last summer.
newsroom. No,
Those were
I
those
was
were
the intern that
amazing.
came in with some fury. But you some people see my energy in it's either mildew or barbecue. So you was always barbecue, Mr. Dillon. You was always up for the fight. So I appreciated that. Talking a little bit what you talked about, honestly, with the jumping seed, honestly, that's gonna be the big thing for me. You did a lot of tracking of you and Mund, a lot of tracking of the bracket metrics, all the different metrics and terms that I'm blanking on right now. Wins above replacement, all the good things that projected Memphis as a 7-8 seed. A, how surprised were you on Selection Sunday when that came out? But also in Penny's comments after in post game comments, but even today, he leaned into the fact that like this was not expected even for him. So how did, like I said, what was your reaction, and how surprised you that Penny is openly voicing like, hey, we didn't expect that either.
Yeah, well, I was definitely surprised. Like you said, we're looking at all those projections, even like up to the point that it was happening on Sunday, it was like Memphis is going to be an eight seed. And like before the game started on Sunday, the AAC championship, we talked to AAC Commissioner Tim Pernetti, and he was like basically already saying, like, why don't we talk about this team as a five seed, but they're going to give Memphis a seven or an eight. And I didn't think anything of it. And people at the time were like, well, obviously Memphis is going to be a five seed. Like, why would he even say that? Right. And then, of course, afterwards, I'll tell you, we were like in this room with the Tigers watching the selection show. And every time they were going to announce like an eight seed or a seven seed, I would take out my phone to like film their reaction, right? Because I wanted to get it. When they got the five seed, I wasn't even filming it because I stopped. I was like, there's no reason to do that. Uh, which is why you got to be ready all the time. But like when they missed whatever the eight seed like in that region, I was like, okay, I guess it's the seven, so I'll pull out my phone when they're gonna get to that one. Uh, and I missed it. So I think from like the Penny perspective, this was obviously something like if Memphis was an eight seed, then all we would be hearing right now is that they were disrespected and they're using it as motivation, right? And understandably so they kind of lost that. There's nothing to say with that. There's nothing to say, oh, I can't believe they gave us a five seed, right? Um, and so, like we said, it kind of moved on to the betting line thing, which is, I understand why they would take that as a sign of disrespect or to use it as motivation. So I think that definitely changed things, and it also changed like what their path is because if they were an eight seed, that would mean that best case scenario, you're probably playing a number one seed in the second round, right? So then it's no matter what, it's gonna be an uphill battle. Now it's like okay, there's like a realistic pathway there. You're not having to beat like the best teams in the country to get there. Obviously, like Maryland is pretty good, and that would be a pretty cool matchup. But it's not having to play Houston or whoever in the second round at Florida in the second round. Um, and so like there's a path there. So I think they're excited about it. I think that's why Penny's talking like that. He's excited about what happened and that people respected the resume that they put together and the record that they had.
No, that's a fact, Jonah. Because even evaluating all of the number one seeds, I think that obviously would do a Cooper Flag, but also just their reliance on freshmen overall. I think in that bracket, I think that's the East. I think Alabama with the healthy Grant Nelson is the best team out of that bracket. But even in the West, after what Florida did in the SEC tournament, but also just the construction of their team, bigs, guards, wings, I think they're a true title contender. So it wouldn't even be like a situation where was it 19 where Memphis faced off against Gonzaga in the round of 32 to where I mean even given Gonzaga's history, not a lot of people see them as true national title contenders. But I think that if we were able to get out, if we were an 8 seed and got out of the 8-9 game, you would have to have your true tiger blue glass on to think that this Memphis team currently constructed, and we'll get into that later, would have a legitimate shot against Florida because like I said, best team, and I would say playing like the best team in the country so far, and won the conference tournament for undoubtedly the best conference in college basketball right now. So definitely a lot more fortunate in terms of the seeding. So, and we'll use it to transition to some other topics currently constructed. Obviously, some of the boots on ground reporting that you did, whether, like I said, small percentage of chance that Tyrese Hunter can come back. Dante Harris supposed to be a bit ahead of Tyrese in terms of that progression. Do you think that Memphis deserved a 5 seed given the fact that they have no healthy point guards at this very moment?
Yeah, well, I mean, that gets into like I mean, I was even talking to someone about this before. I was like, this could be a Jordan Travis situation. Like, uh, are you supposed to ding the team for people who are injured, even if they have done what they, deserve? I guess I know you're anti Florida State, so I know how you feel about that. And that's just a quick peek.
Anti Mike Norvell,
This is a
anti
quick
Mike,
peek
not
at
the entire program. I like Dion, and as you know, Mr. Dylan, there's some very personal reasons for that. I'm gonna let you get you the guess. I'm gonna let you get it off. Keep
That's
going.
just a quick peek at our at one of our probably our best argument in the CAA office was about Florida State football. But it was relevant to the point I was going to make, which is like the Jordan Travis thing, regardless of what you think about the decision, was that they basically said, well, you're not the same team as you were when you won all these games because in that case your star quarterback is not going to play and is injured. And so we're not going to give you this spot that you maybe would have do deserve based on your body of work and would deserve if you had this player because we know that you're not going to be at that level anymore because you have a different quarterback. Um, in this situation, obviously, it's not as clear. And look, I mean, we're not talking about PJ Haggerty, right? We're talking about Tyrese Hunter. Now, I think Tyrese Hunter, it's really hard to like talk about to explain how important he is to this team because a lot of the stuff that he does is the intangibles.
Intangibles. I was about to say,
And
yeah.
like, we always say that like, oh, he's really important in leadership and stuff, but it's just one of those things where like when he's not out there, then you just see like all the things that he's doing, right? Especially bringing people together, being a leader. I think having just a floor general, it's making a lot of players better. It's not even just, oh, he's a good passer and he's getting these guys the ball. It's just like him being out there is helping PJ Haggerty, right? Just to know what he's doing and playing his role. It's helping Dane Danger. It's helping all those guys who are star players. And so I think that like I don't think that they considered that with the seed. I think it's clear, right, with the five that they didn't ding them because I don't think they were going to be higher than that. Um, but I think it's fair to talk about like what where this team is in terms of their ceiling and their expectations with those injuries because also Tyrese Hunter does all those things. The person who is the most other likely person to do that on the team is Dante Harris. So if he's also out, then you've really lost your two players who can do that because there was a game earlier this season that Tyrese Hunter missed, the only other game that he missed besides the AAC championship. Dante Harris started and he played really well and he did a lot of the things that Tyrese Hunter does. So I think without both of them, then you're talking about changing the way that you're playing basically and finding, filling roles with multiple people and things like that. And it's a difficult one to try to figure out. I think that's if you're Penny Hardaway, like that's what he's the biggest question that he has to answer over the next couple of days is how is he going to prepare for that?
No, and honestly, as good as Tyrese Hunter has been throughout the year, and I remember seeing that notification last spring that he was doing it, like, hey, thinking like, hey, this is a major pickup, a guy that honestly coming down from a P5 career, P4 career, Iowa State and Texas. Like, I got
He
to
was
see
a
him.
starter his whole career. Yeah.
Exactly. Like I got to see him in person a couple times being at Austin. Like, honestly, as a freshman, as a sophomore, as a freshman who's at Iowa State playing against Texas, I thought he was an NBA guy. But hey, that is like the level of talent, but also you honestly kind of got Tyrese Hunter for these big game moments. The level of NCAA experience he has, the unquantifiable winner things, you kind of would have leaned on him most in this postseason. So it's honestly, we talked about it in our group chat. It's kind of almost eerily similar to what happened to Caleb Mills last year. Obviously, you don't have the leeway to kind of go off the rails with that season like you did this year. But just like you said, that calming, steadying force, a guy that's been around a winning program, it just sucks to see, unfortunately, him look like potentially close out a career like this. So,
Yeah. Well, yeah. Sorry. Just when you're a senior, it's like this is the worst part of this type of thing is the worst part of like March Madness, right? Like especially when you're a senior and that's it. Like it's just it really sucks. So, but it's also the emotions, right? Like this is what happens when you get to the tournament is you have these super emotional things that are happening. And you just got to like figure it out and move forward, basically.
and like I said, we'll get into this. Like I said, you talked to Penny today. Penny gave you an update on Tyrese and Dante. If you want to regurgitate those, you can. But I'm gonna ask you, Mr. JD, on a scale of 1 to 10 for both Dante Harris and Tyrese Hunter, what would you say is the likelihood of we see them in this NCAA tournament at all?
I don't think I can give a answer to that. I'm not going to give you a number. I mean, a number. I'm not going to say zero. Like, oh, look, here's the thing. Okay, like Penny said, you know what, man? I'm just a reporter. You're trying to whatever. I gotta
I'm
watch
trying
out
to
for
do my
you.
job. Jonah, come
I
on now.
gotta
I was,
watch
I was
out.
in
I
the
gotta
trenches
watch
with
out for
you.
you.
I got
I
to at
gotta
least
watch
throw it
out.
out there. Like I said, you can share
Okay.
whatever.
I don't
You say
have the answer.
what I
Obviously, I
say.
don't have the answers. Here's the thing. Dante Harris he had an ankle injury, which he suffered against UTSA basically 2 weeks ago from today. It was the second to last game of the regular season. Now, obviously not it was a significant ankle injury, right? Because he hasn't come back. He was wearing a boot at first. He was not wearing that boot when he was on the bench for the last two games of the AAC tournament. So I'll say like there's improvement and there's positive signs. He has another year of eligibility, so it's not the same. Um, and even Penny today said he's further along than Tyrese Hunter, so he's closer. That's not surprising, obviously, given what we saw. Tyrese Hunter was on the bench with a walking boot and crutches on Sunday. So for somebody to be able and like for someone to, obviously you can't really walk. For someone to go from that to being able to play basketball 5 days later, very unlikely, right? And so I would be stunned if he was playing. Dante Harris, like I don't think that it's necessarily likely because Penny hasn't been super like he's not saying, oh, it's 50-50, he's questionable. He's saying like he's got a ways to go. But he's at least making progress to the point where like it would be possible that he could come back this season. Um, Obviously, it's a little bit helpful. They play on Friday instead of Thursday, and then if they were to win that game, they play on Sunday. So I wouldn't say it's zero for him, but obviously, if we don't see Dante Harris come back, it's very unlikely we would see Tyrese Hunter come back at the very, very least. Um, and I would be preparing if I was Colorado State, I would be preparing to play them without either of those players. I guess that's how I would put it. Like, and I think that they probably are, given what they've seen. That's also the reason why you're not seeing definitive statements, right? Which is like we always talk about with injury reports. It doesn't really, unless you have to put out a statement like some of these conferences do, you're not really incentivized to like be very specific with what the situations are. And yeah, the only other thing I would say though is Tyrese Hunter, like I wrote about it on Sunday after the game. Like he affected the game without playing. Like he was basically he was sitting with the coaches and he like during timeouts, he was like out on the court talking to players individually, like as if he was an assistant coach. And he obviously knows this team as well as anyone. So I don't think you should fully, I know it sounds like, oh yeah, of course, whatever, but like I don't think you should fully discount um the impact that he's having on the game because it's one thing if you just get injured and you're done, but like if you're engaged in the game with your teammates and obviously you're seeing things and you have a different perspective now, seeing it from the bench instead of on the court, I think it's really important. I think it's important for the rest of the players. So like I would kind of keep that in the back of my mind as they play these games that yes, maybe he's not gonna be on the court, but I think he's gonna help them. And if they're able to win, I think it'll be because he contributed in whatever way he did.
No, I mean that just a far cry from the mental makeup of the team from last year. Very far
Yeah,
cry.
it's crazy. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like you just we keep asking Penny like, what was it like at this time last year when you thought whatever? Even like we got to the AAC tournament, it was like you guys remember that Wichita State game last year, the first game of the tournament where they just melted down. Um, it's it's crazy. I mean, the build the makeup of the team, how together they are, how Penny, I mean, even the way that Penny's like he's you can tell he's so much more relaxed than he was this time last year. And even at the beginning of the season, remember, people were like, "Yeah, they're doing well, but the collapse is coming because it happened last year." Everybody
Safeguarding for
said,
sure.
everyone
Raise
said
your hand.
last
I was
year,
once somebody safeguarding. Like, we saw
yeah,
they got it. There was what again, 15-2 even last year, the start of non-conference. So it was,
they were
you know,
number 10 in the country, and everyone was like, "Man, they figured it out. David Jones is going to be an All-American, and Javon Quinterly is like doing his thing. Like he's got the point guard that he needs, and I know that's your guy right there." And and then it went down the drain. But like, so this year it was like December, and everyone was like, "Yeah, sure, like PJ Haggerty's pretty good, but like we know what's going to happen." And it just didn't, just never happened. They lost a couple games. Every time they lost, they immediately got it back, right? Like every loss, it never was like this is a meltdown. It was just like, okay, yeah, they went back and did it, and they won the regular season title and the conference tournament title. Like it was super impressive.
yeah, that Arkansas State game feels like a million years ago, honestly. I want to broach one more thing that we talked about offline, a very interesting kind of dynamic we kind of broached, and then we'll get into the court. Like I said, preserve some of your time. PJ Haggerty, he's been getting one more year chance, I think, incessantly for the past 2 weeks or so from Memphis Tiger fans. We know that I think y'all put out the report either y'all or the Daily Memphian talking about just his NIL valuation and what the process looks like for him either coming back or leaving during the season, which is kind of crazy. But Jonah, I want you to talk through the conversation that we had last week or earlier this week about what your feelings about PJ Haggerty, his likeliness to return or not to return, and how the NCAA tournament interacts with that. Because I think that was really interesting and something I haven't really seen out there a lot, honestly.
Yeah, well, so obviously, like you said, it's an interesting, weird, it's a weird one because, like you said, the one more year chance, right? But he has 2 more years of eligibility. Um, and maybe this just, I mean, I know you, in this day and age of college sports, everything is year by year, right? So you can't even ask for 2 years. Um, yeah, but so like they're going to the NCAA tournament, right? And he's somebody who's now an All-American and probably will be a consensus All-American. Um, and he's not getting a ton of draft buzz, right? And so a lot of players who are in that position, it's okay, he's this productive and he's scoring this many points. Is that going to translate to the next level? Now that's a different conversation. When it comes to draft buzz, I think part of the reason why he's not, and there's obviously a lot of reasons why the NBA is interested in players and why they're not, is like Memphis is in the AAC. They're playing, they're huge favorites in most of their games. People are just not watching these games as much as they're watching SEC games, right? Um,
And he's not a guy that's gonna dunk on you, hit a ton of step back threes. He was an improved shooter this year, but you don't look at his game and be like, that's first round or even top 15 pick. He doesn't have the game that does that
yeah, well, but
that
also
appeal.
a lot of what he's doing is like the thing that he's really best at is getting to the free throw line.
Facts.
And we can like make, so I've heard some SGA comparisons
I'm
made.
about to say your coworker is the proponent of players that like to get to the free throw line,
Uh,
but I understand in general it's not something that scouts get up and like, oh, that's a translatable skill. At least not
Well,
yet.
I just think people. It just again, he's not getting He's just people aren't. He's not on their radar, and that's how it is. Pretty much because he's playing at a school that's not in a power conference. If you're a casual college basketball fan, you're not just turning on Memphis games. Like that's just the reality. So to me, you get to the NCAA tournament, right, and then everyone's watching every game because it's the NCAA tournament, and they love the story of the guy who comes out of nowhere and the guy you've never heard of until you turn on the NCAA tournament and then he's scoring 30 points, 40 points in a game and you get behind him, right? It feels like it happens every year. There's guys like that. And you can almost predict who they're going to be by looking at teams that don't get a lot of coverage and seeing what's going to happen, right? Because Cooper Flag is not going to be oh my God, that guy is amazing. He came out of nowhere, right? If you turn on a Duke game, you're going to see Cooper Flag. You know what he's done. You've heard about him all season. And to me, like a lot of that stuff helps with draft buzz. So like if PJ Haggerty comes out here and he carries Memphis to the Sweet 16 by scoring 40 points 2 games in a row, like not only is that going to get him on the radar of a lot of people and obviously increase his NIL valuation and the places that want him, that's going to get scouts interested in him and that's going to get people interested in the NBA. And now in this day and age, it's hard to like if you're a borderline draft pick or a second round pick, like there's definitely something to be said for go back to college, right? And so he would have to really improve a lot. But there's precedent for guys coming out of nowhere and becoming legitimate draft picks by having crazy tournament runs. And especially for somebody who right now doesn't have the name recognition, to me, it feels like if that does happen, it would mean that Memphis does really well in the tournament. There's a potential that he would become a draft type player and people would be interested in him. And that would complicate the decision when you get to next year and what he's going to do. So I think it's like with the what's PG Hager going to do? I know it's going to be it's already been a storyline. It's going to be a storyline throughout their tournament run, but I feel like you can't really say until we know how far Memphis goes and how he plays in the tournament because that could have a really big impact on his market, both like in college and in the NBA.
So kind of like a conceptualizing myself and like correct me if I'm wrong. It's essentially like a sliding scale where it's honestly a double-edged sword for Memphis fans. With the season they had, a first round exit would be disappointing. But from what you're telling me, if I'm hearing it right, the sooner that Memphis is out of the tournament, the higher chances that PJ Haggard returning to Memphis could be.
Well, maybe. I mean, but the thing is, even with going deep in the tournament, right? Not only is it draft stock, but like if you carry them to the Sweet Six, to me already, right? He's an All-American. If he's in college next year, coming back as an All-American who's proven multiple times he can score at this level, he could go to any school in the country. Like I think it's pretty clear, right? Um, so it's not that he can't, new doors are going to open, but if he plays really well in the tournament, gets him on more radars, that means that the people at those schools are going to be more like desperate or invested in getting them to their schools, which means more money. And so I think that it raises basically everybody else is going to have a better shot just by the recognition that he would get, both other colleges and the NBA. Now, obviously, like that doesn't mean that you should root for Memphis to lose. Um, and I don't see any scenario where Memphis doesn't have a shot to bring him back. Like I don't think it would be that drastic. But definitely, this is a time where players who aren't on radars get on radars, and he seems like the most obvious candidate as somebody who plays for a school that doesn't people don't watch a lot, and now people are going to watch him play a lot. If he plays really well, he's going to end up on a lot of people's radars. He's not on right now.
Mm, okay. So I mean, like I said, it's not I wouldn't say it's not necessarily like a straight sliding scale, but this is a much more important week, obviously, outside of just groundbreaking tournament for Tigers fans that they should be keenly kind of tapped into a lot of different moving parts, not only with the results, but the performance and how these games form. So y'all keep spamming them one more year chance. Blow my boy PJ up in the comments. Bluff City
What about
Collective.
what
Y'all
about
get it
2 more
together.
years?
Like,
What about 2 more years?
what did you just say, Jonah? In the age of college sports we live in, we just got to take what we can get.
No, how crazy is it that like, sorry, they did that. I tweeted about this. They posted the video of the Tigers like getting back from the AAC tournament, and there's people at the airport like to like welcome them back, and they're like cheering like go Tigers," and the players are walking over, and then like they see PJ like in the back like walking off the airplane, and they just start chanting one more year, like, and he knows it's for like he's already back there. Um, like it's and now during free throws, during like he was getting announced to the AAC tournament as the player of the tournament, like it's like an automatic reaction. Like if you're a Tigers fan and you're walking somewhere and you see PJ Haggerty, you just have to stop what you're doing and say one more year. So we'll see if it works. I don't know.
We'll see if it works. Like I said, the Bluff City Collective, y'all start fundraising. Let's get on to the court. Like I said, 'cause you just put something out there. You know me, decent hoops head. So I was abreast of a lot of things that you
Decent.
wrote. But like I said, I want to delve deeper into the with you, sir. Colorado State, Nick Clifford, a guy that had big time performance last year in the tournament, a guy that's on a lot of people's NBA boards as a potential first round pick, and like you mentioned, one of the hottest teams on the not West Coast, winning 10 games in a row. Like I said, they got a do it all guard. Like I said, do it all 6'6" guard, leads in points, rebounds, and assists. Kind of like their taller version of PJ Haggerty. But one thing that a lot of people have pointed out, not a lot of interior presence for Dane Danger. So, what is your evaluation of this Colorado State squad? How they could beat Memphis, but also how Memphis could beat them?
Yeah, like basically Nick Clifford, if you stop him, then you win. Like that's I honestly I to me it's kind of like Axel Lenderberg, right? Like he you have this and he's a Nick Clifford is a different kind of player because like you said, he's a 6'6", he's 6'6", but he's like a legit rebounder. He averages 9 rebounds a game. And does everything and then assists. So if you're leading your team, basically he leads his team in points, rebounds, assists, and steals, and he's like point 0.1 off of leading them in blocks. The only players who lead their teams in all those stats are Yaxel Lenderberg and Cooper Flagg. And so he's like very basically at that level in terms of what he means to his team. So if you can limit him, like there you go. Like you're probably gonna win because they're not the kind of team where, and again in March, if you have one thing and you can do it really well, that can be really effective. But there's always things happen, guys get in foul trouble, whatever, and then you got to have a plan B. I don't know that Colorado State has great other options. So like that's if I'm Penny, if I'm Memphis, I'm thinking like if we can find a way to not like take this guy away completely, but just limit him and make it hard for him, or at least make it so he's not impacting the game to a crazy level. Like Yaxel Lenderberg actually had a really good game on Sunday. You could tell he was totally out of gas by the end. That was the problem. Playing 3 games in 3 days the way that he does, but what they did is they just didn't allow him to take over the game, impact it. Even if you're going to put up stats, don't just make sure that other guys have to hit shots. And to me, like that's what it is. From the Memphis perspective, to me, it's like if you can, assuming there's no Tyrese Hunter and no Dante Harris, like you've got to limit turnovers. That's the biggest problem. It was already a problem with those guys, and now you've lost the person who's gonna, help you do that the most, not limit them the most. And Brock Okoje comes in the starting lineup and he brings a lot to the table, but I don't know that like limiting turnovers is his strong suit compared to Tyrese Hunter, right? Um, and so that's going to be the big thing, I think, because we've seen with the way that PJ Haggerty and Dane Danger are playing lately that like I just don't see how they would get run off the court in any situation. Um, Even if a team is going on a run or something, they have enough scoring, and again, multiple guys that can score. I feel like Memphis is going to be in this game, so it's going to come down to making good decisions at the end of the game, and then it comes down to limiting turnovers. That's the biggest thing to me that they have to do.
Okay, and we'll get a little rapid fire. We'll get you out of here in a decent time. Who draws the Nick Clifford matchup? Is it Brock Okogie? Is it Kobe Rogers? Is it Demarion Yates? We never know. Shout out to homeboy. Is it a guy Nick Jordan? Who do you see as the body type that would be the best primary defender on Nick Clifford?
That's a really good question. I think I would expect Baraka to get some like I would expect him to do some of it. I think if I'm Memphis, what I'm doing is I'm throwing as many guys at him as possible. Like because even like Nick Jordan, he ended up being the guy who really did the best against the actual Enderberg, but he wasn't the guy who started on him, especially if you go back to the first couple of games. That they found that in the second game and it was working. Um, so I think what you do is you throw different guys at him, and also like you throw different body types at him, right? Because that makes it hard to get in a flow during a game. If you're a star player and you're used to scoring, even if you've got a guy defending you and he goes out and somebody else comes in and they're kind of doing the same things, it helps you get in a rhythm. So if you start throwing different body types at people defensively, even if you're scoring, it's really hard to get in a rhythm and to get things going. And so I would think, yeah, he's going to be out there. He's going to see different guys. He's going to see different looks all the time. If they need to double him, they will. I don't think it'll just be one guy who's sitting there trying to stop him.
Okay. Like I said, rapid fire. Realistic expectation for this Tiger team, given their spot they're in. Obviously, a lot of people are excited about the potential Spider-Man meme matchup that you got with round of 32, Dairy Queen, Dane Danger, Maryland. I want like our professional Memphis team has suffered a lot of last second losses recently. So if we could get past Colorado State, do you see a scenario to where Memphis can do some damage outside of the Sweet 16 around the 32?
Yeah, I mean, I think Maryland's really good, right? Obviously, they've had a really good season. They got to look Grand Canyon. Watch out. I'm not calling it, but I'm just saying
And then
Grand Canyon.
your non-West Coast by Grand Canyon. That's Arizona, if I believe, correct?
Yeah, no, Grand Canyon is good. Like that's not an easy game. I'm just saying it's not an easy game. Everyone is like, man, Memphis, Maryland, it's gonna be a good game. I'm like, okay, let's I'm not calling it. I'm just saying Grand Canyon is good. Shout out to Ty and Grant Foster. Like they're
They are Kansas
anyways,
transplant.
if
Red
they do
flag.
play Maryland, I think it'd be a really interesting matchup because I mean Maryland, I mean it's the starting five, the Crab Five, right? Like they have the best starting unit in terms of scoring in the country, and they're really well rounded with what they do. And
Like
so
five starters averaging, I think, 10 points a game. I think I saw.
yeah, and so like I think it's not even like their if you take their average of their starters versus like every other team in the country, it's like not even close. Um, And so it's going to be a problem, like if that's the matchup, because I think there's a lot to deal with, and it's not like you said, Derek Queen obviously is huge, he's getting a lot of draft buzz and all that, but like it's not just him. Like not necessarily they're a deep team in terms of like their bench and everything, but like they've just got multiple guys that can score and they can beat you. And so it's kind of the opposite of what we just talked about with Nick Clifford, where it's like take this guy away and you're probably going to win. When you're playing Maryland, it's not like let's just stop this one guy, right? And so there will be a lot to deal with in that game. But it would be winnable. Like again, PJ Haggerty, if you have an All-American and you can just score 42 points in a game, like you can't just say this team doesn't have a chance to win, even if the other team has more talent or they're favored or whatever. And so like it is definitely possible for Memphis to make the Sweet 16. After that, it would depend on matchups. You talked about Florida. If they played Florida in the Sweet 16, obviously Florida would be favored. It's the NCAA tournament. It's one game, anything can happen. So I'm not going to be stunned by any developments, but I think it's possible for Memphis to make the Sweet 16. If Tyrese Hunter was 100% healthy, I think people would be confident picking them to make the Sweet 16. So that's kind of the difference. It'll depend how they obviously they have to beat Colorado State. It'll also be interesting to see how they navigate that game without, who's playing point guard. Is it the same as Sunday? How does Brock Koje play? Does anyone else have to play that role? Does PJ Haggard have to handle the ball more? Things like that. I think those will be the questions that will be most interesting if they do win and they're headed to play in the second round.
Okay. Now, as you plain, like I said, like I said, I as you plainly, if I'm spoiling an article, let me know. You can dance around there. You got good feet, anyways. If Jonah Dylan had to put his well-lined pockets and money on the line, how far would you say the Memphis Tigers go in the 2025 NCAA tournament?
Um, I think they
This your
probably
money now, Jonah. This your money, personal money, Gannett dollars
look.
that you're laying down.
Okay. I mean, Memphis is an underdog against Colorado State, so you can Uh, make some money in that game. Uh, I think Memphis beats Colorado State and loses to Maryland. I mean, I think that's the most I think that's the most likely scenario. I know that I guess it's not. I guess the most likely scenario is they lose to Colorado State according to the betting lines. Um, I think with Colorado, the way Colorado State plays and Memphis' strengths, I think that it's a good matchup. Obviously, again, the Tyrese Hunter thing hurts, but I think it's a good matchup. I think that's the betting line. Colorado State is really hot. They won 10 games in a row. Um, but also the Tyrese Hunter thing, I think, is contributing to that line. I think that that's possible. And if Memphis is playing Maryland, like I would expect to be a close game. I think Maryland would be favored, a healthy favorite in that game, and even that whatever the spread was, I would expect it to be a close game. But I feel like that's the most likely thing that I see from now. But like it's the thing, you never know. Like they play the first game, guys get injured, whatever, guys don't look good. You could totally recalibrate by the time you play another game.
Your work coworker, my buddy, allegedly, Jason Munn, shout out to homie, get back to him at some point.
Allegedly.
As reported, has Dane Danger himself has said it, but Jason has also reported there's a possibility that Dane Danger does have a year of eligibility left. What do you know about that front, and do you expect slash see a scenario to where Dane Danger is rocking Memphis Tiger Blue again next year?
Well, it's not, yeah, I don't think it's a possibility he has another year of eligibility left as it stands. Like he
Oh,
doesn't. That's,
okay.
but you can always say that you can, like, if you're a Memphis fan, like DeAndre Williams, he applied for a waiver, right? He didn't get it, but DeAndre Williams, what happened was he didn't have any eligibility left, and he said, "I'm going to apply for a waiver to get more eligibility," basically. So if you're Dane Danger, you could do that. The NCAA also, like, not to get too in the weeds with like legal stuff, but like suing the NCAA is like a pretty effective strategy. Um, Diego Pavia didn't have any eligibility left, and he said, "I'm just going to sue them and get some eligibility," and it worked. So that's an effective strategy. It obviously you have to have the legal basis for doing it. Um, so if he was able to do that and say, look, this rule that you have is not fair, which is basically it would be the redshirt rule because the reason is that he played a couple of games when he was a freshman or
Baylor?
redshirted when he was at Baylor. That would be the reason. So it's like as of now, he doesn't have any eligibility left. You can say you should give me eligibility for this, and it's really hard to tell with these cases what's going to work and what doesn't because even some things like if you followed the case at Tennessee baseball right now, it seems like he should be able to get eligibility, but they've said no multiple times. Even though they told him that he could like that, that's a really weird one. And so it's hard to even call these ones because it seems like it's pretty clear going in or whatever that, oh, this person does or doesn't have eligibility, and then you find out they don't. So um, I would have no idea how that would play out, but like that to me is that if he does want to get more eligibility, that would be the way to go after it.
Okay. Last Tigers question. I'm gonna ask you literally give me like 3 to 4 sentences, a paragraph worth of stuff on our grids. You've been there decently. You've been there a decent amount of time, almost half a decade now in the city.
I've
Um,
not been in the city half a decade. What are you talking about? I've
how
been
long
in
you
the
been
city
in the
for
CA?
less than 2 years, man. I mean, I'll
I
take
mean,
the
you're such a Grizzle vet and
yeah, yeah,
experience. It's
that's
like
what yeah.
you give off the
You're
aura.
saying that I'm old. You're saying that I'm old. Okay, yeah.
You're a veteran in this game,
So you're
Jonah.
saying that
You
I'm old.
said
Okay,
old.
wow.
You said the old world. Our friend gets a little bit more offended than you, but I did not put old on you. Not yet. I will soon. I will
But
soon.
I'll take it as a compliment. I'm taking it as a compliment.
Exactly. And your brief, I'll put it like that, experience with the city, knowing Penny, knowing this program. How do you think this season has? Do you think this season has changed or shifted the narrative perspective of Penny's job security and just the perception of this team in general?
Yeah, it's had a huge, I mean, it's been incredible, like over the past couple of months. Like think about the way people were talking about, and you even heard Penny talk about it. Like last season, people were like, what's going on? Like this program is going downhill. Like, why did this happen last season? We're hearing all this stuff about people aren't happy in the locker room and they melt down, and it's not fun to watch them play, and Penny's not doing this and Penny's not doing that. And even he talked about like walking around the city for the first time in his life, he felt like he let people down or like they didn't respond to him the same way because like you're talking about you walk down the street in Memphis and ask somebody like who's your favorite person from Memphis or name somebody from Memphis, even just anyone, they would say Penny Hardaway, right? Like he's a superstar in the city. It's hard to even like obviously it's hard for when I try to explain this to people who like don't know Memphis, they don't live here, to explain what Penny means to this city. Like they don't, it's hard to even explain it. Like they don't get it because what it means to have somebody who is from Memphis, grew up here, played for the Tigers, right, was so successful in his career, and then like came back to Memphis and everything he did even before he was a Tigers coach. Um, and then to have what happened last season, like people finally for the first time were like kind of souring on it. And so this season now you can see how they're all the way back, obviously, right? They're totally in on Penny and what he's done as a coach and his transformation. And you've heard him talk about his growth as a coach. Even like today, he was talking about that. Like he said that like the team with Jalen Duren in 2022 should have gone to the Final Four, but he didn't get the most out of them. Um, and that's not
Real
something.
transparent, like transparency that you only get from having achieved success at later stages. Because I saw that,
Yeah,
I was
like
like,
you don't hear coaches just say that, right? Like be like, yeah, I should have done more. Like you don't hear that, especially not right away. That wasn't that long ago. That was a couple years ago. And so I think this season it's just been to see the moments of him cutting down the nets and being able to do that, especially when they got to do it in Memphis for the regular season. That moment was really special. Like it really was. To see Penny get to do that in Memphis and to see the way the fans have bought back into what he's doing and the success that this team has had this season. Like that's been the biggest story I think through line. And really, like, it doesn't, I know people will get it, but like, their season is their season. They're going to go play in a tournament, right? A single elimination tournament. Like, if they go lose to Colorado State, it doesn't take away from any of that to me. And I know people won't think about it the same way. That's how we do it with the NCAA tournament. But like, all those moments they've had so far are they had those moments and they're untouchable. Like I know it's not winning, it's not going to the Sweet 16. It's just winning the AAC championship, which a lot of people say they should have done anyways or whatever. But um, yeah, I think all that he's done this season, it's been he won AAC Coach of the Year. Like it's a big deal. And I think all those things are important, and we should remember that no matter what happens this week.
Really important perspective because, hey, like you said, a lot of people are going to determine, just going to see the city. They're going to determine the sex of the season based off what happens in the next weekend, but also just all the stuff with the conference and the invalidation of AAC and all of that. I think you provided a very important perspective, in not terms of just on the court, but also, like you said, just recent history, just like how much this city means.
That's what I'm here
Jonah,
for.
of course, that's what we got you on here for. Thank you so much, Jonah A. Thank you so much. You'll be out in Seattle Wednesday. Like I said, hopefully get into the second weekend with our team. I told you I'm gonna hold you, or like I said, you can yap as much as you want to, but I'm gonna give you at least a minimum of 3 to 4 sentences. You also cover the other cover the other team in Memphis.
The other team.
They are the other team right now, Jonah. They are the other team right now with their level of play on the court. And I'll take that one as the data. You feel what I'm saying? I got it.
Okay. All right.
I
Yeah.
said it, not Jonah. Come on now.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Why? What is going on with the Memphis Grizzlies right now from your perspective? And should fans have any sort of hope in terms of turning the thing around or anything outside of a first round playoff exit?
This is my thing. I think it all comes down to if Ja is going to be healthy, right? And there's not a lot of evidence to suggest that he is based on how the season has gone. Like, is he going to play 7 games in a row? Let's say they play a 7 game series in the first round. If you're telling me that Ja is going to play 7 games in the first round of the playoffs, then no matter who that matchup is, I think there's a great chance that the Grizzlies could win. Like, I know we have all the other flaws and stuff in the defense, this and what's Jaren's role and all, who's going to play off the bench and Zach Edey's doing this and he's doing that. Like, those things are all important, and I get it, and especially when Ja is out, that's what we have to talk about. But like, it comes down to if John Moran is going to play in the playoffs. Like to me, like that's the conversation. And if he's going to stay healthy, because if he does, then I think you've unlocked a lot of things. Because again, like Jaren Jackson Jr. has been amazing this season. Like the way that he's like unlocked his game offensively is something that a lot of people just didn't think he had in him, and it takes the Grizzlies to another level if everyone is healthy. And I think with that, and if everyone is again, if everyone is healthy, I think that I understand the reasons for concern, but like this is just a very good chance they could win a playoff series. Now are they an NBA Finals contender? Like I don't think so. Um, but like we just said, anything can happen. Guys get injured. It would really just take like an OKC injury for the West to open up, or even some kind of implosion in the playoffs because that's not a team that's been tested a lot in the playoffs. Obviously, they're favorites. But yeah, I think there's if you're looking for reasons for optimism, I think that they're there. I just think that there's a thing where every NBA game we kind of hang on like I can't believe they lost this game, this season is over, and it's like there's 82 games. Like we've seen a sample size, they've won a lot of games. Now they've struggled against the best teams. That's important. So I think matchups are going to be important, and it depends who they get in the first round if they're going to have a real chance at winning the playoff series. But I don't think that we should write them off completely. I think there's plenty of reasons to think that they could be competitive in a playoff series, depending on what the matchup is. That was
That
more than 2 sentences. Sorry.
you did. I almost jumped in a little bit, but I saw you looking over. But you know what? You just love me so much. You just had to give me everything you got, and I
I
appreciate that.
did. Yeah. That's why I went out of my way to do this, and I'm like, yeah. Like I just said, busy day today, but the most important thing that was on my schedule was this podcast. So there
You
we go.
heard it from the man himself.
Yeah.
That is Jonah Dylan with the Memphis Commercial Appeal. He'll be out there in Seattle covering the NCAA tournament with your Tigers. He'll be boots on ground back soon enough, if we can get him back covering your Memphis Grizzlies playoff run in the lead up to the end of the regular season. Brother, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I'm going to run it back sometime. Get out of here.